Hello, everyone. It's the absolute king, the most absolute there has ever been. Dylan. That's me. Talking about House of the Dragon. The second episode came out, and I'm going to talk about. First, I'd like to talk about last week's episode. In my quick making and limited time of the video, I failed to realize in the books the dragon seeds were in the Battle of the Gullet. All of them. For some reason, I remember only a few dragons in that battle, and I read past that part last week. I also failed to mention Bela's dragon was too young to battle, but if you know the books, then we all know Bela's dragon didn't do anything, especially not that Christian Cole moment last season. But to note on that battle, I liked it. There were shots of Jace kind of to low. Jace died in the books from flying too low, while I'm guessing Bela and the dragon seeds in the books was smarter and stayed high. At least I got the Riverlands battles correct. It was also nice to see last week's episode shouting out a knight if the Seven Kingdoms by having Ulf use the woods like Duncan the Tall. What a shame we couldn't get a full shot of it. All very necessary to the show. Hey, a little message to the writers. We didn't need that stuff. We all do that enough in our everyday lives. I'm not laughing. If the writers were listening, I have a question to ask. How did Ulf now Balon was his father? A red priest told him he was a dragon seed, but if he didn't know his mother, who could have passed on the tale that it was Balon who slept with her? Did he assume because Balon loved and hanged with the people? It's a nitpick that annoyed me. So last week was the Battle of the Gullet. Jace died, Lohar died, though. In the books, she, who is a handy, unless the history books muddied that up, she survived the battle to have eastern plots within the Triarchy. The Triarchy never appear in the war again and instead dissolved into a war between the cities, states that Lohar will die in. Just by the way, this was all set up for a season 2 finale. Jace barely had any screen time in season 3 because it was episode 1. It was season 2, everything was leading to his story's finale. Same with Lohar. She was introduced in the finale episode, only has 2 total episode appearances. She didn't need to be set up in one season to die in the first episode of the next, but I'm still nitpicking. Also to bring up Tyland. Wasn't sure if Tyland survived last episode. In the books, he plays a part after the war, but since the show clearly isn't adapting that far ahead, Tyland's future plots don't matter, so it seemed he could just be killed off. But this episode has a couple of interesting things. Aegon and Larys are unintentionally saved by the Triarchy landing, which couldn't have happened in the books. The Triarchy fought only the Battle of the Gullet and scurried away when defeated, never to be involved in the war again. And also, the battle happened away from the shores inland, so they would never have landed. Otherwise, it would be close to King's Landing, since the city is at the mouth of the River Blackwater. Rhaena is back in the Vale, where in the books she never left for the entire war. Nettles at this time would be with the other dragon seeds and Sheepstealer, who isn't an outlaw dragon. Bela didn't rat out Rhaena. How nice of her. Twin connection. Lady Jane Eyre is just not caring, has no anything to do with Rhaena. In the books, Jane's character was only described as not really anything. She had to contest with her cousin's claims when she was younger, so I can see that kind of shining through in her personality of just not tolerating this kind of stuff. In the books, Joffrey and his dragon was in the Vale because Jace sent him away for safety. Joffrey would be called back to join his mother in King's Landing. Not that any of that matters. Alice in the books is mysterious, like implied in the show, but her wanting Harrenhal in her own name seems kind of pulled out of nowhere. Later in the books, it does happen, she wants to claim it, but the show seemed different. But I guess it's not going against anything in the books. I just thought it was pretty stupid if she was only helping Daemon with his loyalty problems and stuff about the darkness coming, so she could make this appeal when she obviously has no right to it. Makes her seem delusional and stupid. Seemed better when she was just helping to mess with Daemon or push him down into his path of fighting the White Walkers. Really mysterious. The song about the fish feed isn't mentioned in the books, but I didn't think every song made from war ends up in histories. A singer made a sing about the Battle of Oxcross, but it only becomes reverberated to those at Riverrun. So I guess it's so etching the history could have left out. Daemon is not supposed to be there singing, though. He's at King's Landing because they took the capital before the Riverlands battle. They could have had the Gullet at the end of last season, have taken King's Landing, be episode 1 of this season, then take about 2 episodes to focus on the Riverlands battles. We wouldn't have a Targaryen main character's perspective, but this is supposed to be a historical retelling. There aren't supposed to be just main characters. We should be moving to different perspectives of those leading the army. But I guess the show needed people to hone in to tell the whole story and show about, but that underdeveloped other characters like Rhaenyra's sons by having Jace not lead during Rhaenyra's grief. And they add a plot point of Rhaenyra being locked in her room for no point. It's avoiding showing other characters' stories. The stuff with Sir Laurent, I have no idea where they're going with. I suppose it could be possible in the books they locked Rhaenyra away from going in the battle in a grieving state, but that's just stupid. I don't think would have that in the actual history of the books of the story they're telling. But in the books, he doesn't die at this point. So him offering to die, I have an idea where they might go with it, but I'll leave that for the spoiler predictions. Alicent is going all out traitor mode, preparing for Rhaenyra's overtaking, and all because she was disgruntled about not being listened to in wartime and being made the ruling queen, since she was preventing Rhaenyra from being that. I guess no one told her, live by the patriarchy, die by the patriarchy. First, she married herself into the line of kings and blood of Valyria, though that was more her father. Then she split up the family and had them declare war on itself, basically destroying House Targaryen herself. Haliana should have called her more out on it when bringing up her points on how Alicent made Aegon king, and all she says is, I made a mistake. I do like Haliana recognizing how good Jace was to her. Haliana wasn't creepy in the books, but cheerful and a lovely lady. Ironrod Jasper is mentioned to having many bastard and to frequent relationships with women. Never mentioned that he is an aggressor in that hobby. So I guess the writers saw that unfaithfulness and decided to push it a bit farther. I suppose it's not an unbelievable stretch, but it's still them writing their own character a bit away from the books. Alicent wasn't the one to betray the Greens, so there was never a plot for him to discover. I guess the show is making him smarter, or at least more connected. I thought he might be a Larys crony after seeing him offering him free information to win Aemon's favor, but seems he's against Larys. He's a minor footprint, so none about him matters. In the books, it is mentioned each Green Council member take a blood oath to unite them, suggesting all traitors weren't formally united or one big family. Not sure why Orwell was let off for just saying where Ironrod was. Did he tell about what he did to Alicent or that he tried to stop her? Not in the books because Alicent never turns traitor. Rickard Thorne is the only Green Kingsguard with only character traits or arc shown. Not really an arc, I guess. In the books, he takes the non-existent Maelor away before the fall, knowing what Rhaenyra is going to do, and takes him into hiding where he will die defending the baby from the mob. With no Maelor, I figured they could have done that with Jaehaera. Jaehaerys was supposed to be taken by Sir Willis Fell, but I guess he's not important if they're saying Lady Fell was a Rhaenyra supporter. And also, didn't they execute black supporters in season 1 after Viserys died? Were these the one who bent the knee but couldn't have been trusted anyway? Rhaenyra is in grief in this episode. After the death of her first son, she never really did anything in the books up until the taking of King's Landing because she was grieving that first loss. She just wanted revenge and to burn the Greens. It was Jace that did everything. Now Jace is dead and she quickly mourns him to focus on the war and revenge. Rhaenyra takes King's Landing with the help of the Valyrian fleet in the books. They're not rendered completely inactive as it is implied here. Daemon one-man solo killing every running soldier just waiting to die in a single slash is kind of stupid. Rhaenyra had her own men besides Daemon aiding taking the Red Keep. Luther Largent helps, just like in the books, but he does not because Alicent ordered him, but he turned traitor and was a loyal Daemon follower. Gwaine Hightower died here, grabbed by Luther's men calling Luther a traitor before getting killed. Instead of joining Christian's army, Gwaine was made second in command of the City Watch by his father Otto. Speaking of Otto, he was never taken captive before King's Landing fell, unlike what last season showed hinted at and what this episode revealed. That Laris just sprang up and caught him for some reason. He was there when the city fell, still free as a bird, and was killed just like Ironrod. I guess they had other plans for him that they'd changed to this. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Why keep him captive before Rhaenyra took the city? Tyland was supposed to be in the city too, but kept alive because he hid the gold so he would be tortured for a while. Lord Rosby and Stokeworth are also executed after trying to turn sides, but I mention them because their daughters have a role that I'm not sure they might mention in the show. There were casualties in the books, about 100 greens and minimum loses for the blacks. It was as bloodless as the show makes it, because Alicent didn't turn traitor and order everyone to stand down. The victorious Riverlands and Northman army celebrate with a song never says in the books, but I'm sure every great battle in history has a sing about it, even if not mentioned in the histories. After Jason Lannister's defeat, Dalton Greyjoy calls for Rhaenyra and sacks Lannisport now that it's weak. He doesn't really do it for the blacks, but just for raid. Aemon takes Harrenhal like in the books, but this happened before the Riverlands and Westermen clashed. The River Lords moved out before Aemon arrived. There was no army encamped outside to burn. Aemon did kill Simon Strong and all his sins immediately when taking the castle. It specifically mentions not Alice, but Aemon was never wounded in the books, or maybe it just didn't mention that, but seemed there was no battle at all in Harrenhal. I think it was peaceful. The taking of the castles in the books didn't have immediate executions, I think. Made for more drama, do them in one scene each. But I think in the books, they would have taken hold of the castle and then bring their deaths afterwards, after everything was stably in their control. But the books don't mention it, so it can be that way. For some spoilers now, if you haven't read the books, stop. But we get a scene of Alan and Baela, appropriate since they marry at the end of the war. Baela is ordered to marry so she can have heirs because the Targaryen line is so diminished. She is forced to marry Thaddeus Rowan, but she runs off to her half-uncle Alan, and he marries her to protect her. It is mentioned in the books Alan cheats on her, maybe, and after she died, he has an affair with a young Targaryen, Elena, so he kind of sucks. I think the season will end with dragon seeds turning in the Battle of Tumbleton. Last episode, or second to last, it will end the Winter Wolves story. Ormond will die, but I think he might live in N, the show. He might do what bold John Roxton is slated to. I didn't know. They did set up Roxton so he could be the one doing the arc, but they could just give a more important character than a background like him the arc. Nothing of Christian. I suspect next episode will set him up a bit for his battle Butcher's Ball in what I assume episode 4. I believe Daemon's plot in the books, where he has conflict with Rhaenyra because of his relationship with Nettles, will become Daemon protecting his daughter Rhaena once he learns she was the Dragon Rider. Back to Sir Laurent. He dies trying to save Joffrey, so maybe they will give him a small arc of being guilt-ridden but not wanting to kill himself, despite offering himself. So instead, he'll live and try to redeem himself later. But I'm done. This has been the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.